For week 5, we are going to discuss creativity at last. In my presentation, I will discuss creativity in the workplace within the context of the final assignment. Workplace creativity is really a very important topic, and it's going to be more useful to you than the abstract kind of discussion of innovation and policy in Estrin's book probably will be. Creativity is very important, and it's important because creativity can be applied everywhere in your workplace, everywhere in your life. Innovation, you can employ that in some places, creativity everywhere. Now, as a preamble, let me just say that I'm going to move relatively quickly because I know that your time is valuable and that you have a lot to get done. All right, so the personal creativity paper is an assignment where you are asked to write 8 to 10 pages exclusive of the title and references pages. This is your personal creativity paper. This is about you, your workplace, your life. So I, we, you, all those pronouns become appropriate because this is not merely an academic paper, it is a personal paper. And you're going to demonstrate your understanding of the reading assignments, the classroom discussions, which means your input, your classmates' input, my input, your own research, as well as the implications of new knowledge. In your personal creativity paper, you are going to assess your level of creativity, and you're going to support that with examples. You're going to explain the role of creativity in your profession. Support that with examples. Describe at least 2 typical business situations in which creative thinking would lead to realizing better solutions or achieving opportunities. Describe one thing that you need to do differently to foster creative thinking approaches in business situations. In other words, when you are at work, and explain 3 actions that you will take to increase your personal creativity. You need to be sure to cover each and every one of these topics in your paper and make sure that it is absolutely clear to your reader, in other words, to me, that you have covered each and every one of these thoroughly, completely, and in detail. Mechanics, there's always mechanics, 8 to 10 double-spaced pages formatted according to APA style. I sent out a sample paper. You have reference to style guides. Follow APA style. Your cover page needs to be formatted in APA style. Course name and number, title of paper, so on and so forth. APA style, by the way, because I keep seeing this, means double-spaced, no extra spaces between paragraphs, 1/2 inch indents, 1 inch margins around the page, that sort of thing. Include an introductory paragraph with your thesis statement. If you're not sure what thesis statement is, topic statements are, check my announcements. Address the topic of the paper with critical thought. That means think about it. Do not simply rehash what you found in Estrin or online. Critical thought. That's key. Conclude with a restatement and a conclusion paragraph at the end of your paper. Of course, you want to make sure you use scholarly sources, 3 articles, 2 websites, and the text. Scholarly sources mean not Huffington Post, not National Enquirer, not Wikipedia, that sort of thing. Use the APA style as outlined in the style guide and in the sample paper. And your final page will be a reference page completed according to APA style as outlined in the style guide. Let me repeat. You want to make sure your similarity index is 20% or less. That includes directly quoted sections. It includes anything that Turnitin finds, anything that I find using Google. 80% your thought, because whatever you write is going to be far more interesting to me than anything that you find online. Guarantee it. Finally, carefully review the grading rubric for the criteria that will be used to evaluate your assignment. That's what I use. That's what I'm required to use to grade your work. Read it, because that way you know how score is kept. So let's go through this in some detail, and let's cover some of these topics, and hopefully I can make it a little less vague, a little more clear, give you a little better understanding of why this is actually a really good set of topics for a paper. So what does this all mean? Well, we want to demonstrate your understanding of the reading assignments, class discussions, your own research implications, and new knowledge. That means that the purpose of this paper is to get you to synthesize the individual bits that you've learned through the discussions and through the other elements of the text. And you want to demonstrate that in your paper. So you want to make sure that you refer to the readings of Estrin. You want to make sure you refer to the readings and the class discussions. You want to make sure that you use your own research. That's those 5 sources. And they're the implications of new knowledge. What does new knowledge means? New knowledge means what this means to you and why it matters. How does this all go together? Why in the world should we care? What have you gotten out of that? That's the implications of new knowledge. So just really quickly, some of the things you might want to touch in out of Estrin. You'll recall this slide from my guidance from week 1. You want to think about the innovation process, because there's some questions out of those 5 that ask you about your workplace and how your business environment encourages innovation or encourages creativity. Remember what the core values of innovation were: questioning, patience, trust, openness, and risk. Innovation and creativity are not exactly the same things. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you're not going to encourage creativity if you're not also encouraging innovation. Think about, too, this graphic out of my week 2 guidance and out of Estrin. Think about that cycle of research to development to applications back to research, because this cycle applies to innovation process and it ties also into creativity. We'll talk about that. And you may also want to think about some of these observations as you address the essay. Okay. In particular, radical versus incremental impacts, okay, influential individuals, this sort of thing. These topics they may not, they may feed into your essay. All right. What's it all mean? 5 scholarly sources, at least 3 articles, 2 websites. The way I write a paper is I write a paper, and as I write it, I go, how did I know that? Do I know that? Did I know it because I read it somewhere? How do I know that's a true statement? Because if you're writing a scholarly paper, you want to make sure that you support your statements. Don't use hyperbole, vast, ginormous. I've had ginormous in papers. These are not proper terms. 50,000, 5,000 patents, what have you. All right, scholarly sources. Okay, so let's talk about creativity. What is creativity? This is out of Google. I just run Google, the search term. This is what they have as the definition. Creativity is the use of imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. That's a stereotype. Creativity is a lot of other places than artistic work. You're going to be creative in writing your essay. You will be creative in your business workplace. You'll be creative anywhere you are. Creativity is imagination, original ideas. Not just doing it the way it's been done for 20 years. You might be creative in mowing your lawn. Okay? That innovation. How are these different? Well, they're not the same thing. Look at innovation. Innovation is make changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products. Creativity is new ideas. Innovation is making changes. You can see that they're different, but that they're related. Creativity is a state of mind. Okay? It may be prerequisite to innovation, because you have to have the original idea before you can make that change, right? But creativity can be applied not just to innovate, but also, more importantly, it can be applied to your work. It can be applied to how you manage people. It can be applied to how you manage your boss. It can be applied to how you relate to your customers. Creativity is a terribly general behavior which goes far beyond just innovation. Let's quickly go through the sections of the paper. This is what I was saying. First section asks you to assess your creativity. So how do you do that? You don't want to just say, yeah, I think I'm creative, duh. No. How do you know you're creative? You're going to give examples. And make it fun. There's all sorts of tests you can take online. Here's one. Which way do you see the dancer rotating? I have to tell you that try as I might, I see her rotating clockwise. This supposedly tells me that I am left-brained. If you see her rotating counterclockwise, then that says that you are right-brained. Oh, what's this right-brained, left-brained thing? The simplified way of looking at it is that if you're left-brain dominant, then you're logical, analytical, linear, good at mathematics, languages, computation, facts, this sort of thing. If you're right-brain dominant, you're good at creativity and imagination, holistic thinking, all these sorts of things. Well, left brain, by the way, controls your right hand. Right brain controls your left hand. And so people say, well, artists are more likely to be left-handed. Well, what's the research show? Frankly, it's a bit mixed. But this is an interesting way to think about the question. You can go to some websites. That dancer came from this Indiana University website. Or you can just Google creativity self-assessment, which is what I did. Make it fun. Take a couple tests. Give them to your family. Give examples. Assess the role of creativity in your profession. So think about your profession, your chosen line of work. Maybe the one you're in, maybe the one you want to be in. How is creativity employed in that profession? Creativity is really employed in all professions, just in different ways to different extents. So describe the way that creativity is used in your profession. Now, consider how creativity might be useful in business. You want to illustrate your essay with 2 or more examples. Here's one way to think it through. Think of a situation. Think of a problem. Think of a scenario. Think of an opportunity. Maybe creativity can be helpful to you in terms of developing products or services. Maybe human resources kind of issues, managing people, hiring people, motivating people. Maybe it can be helpful in terms of customer service. Think of these situations. Where might creativity be helpful? That's a way to start. Remember that creativity is the use of the imagination or original ideas. How can you use imagination, original ideas to do those things we just talked about? Finally, the 4th thing you want to get to is what do you need to do differently to foster overall creativity in business situations? Part 4 really asks you to think about applying the readings and principles of this course within a business situation. So this one isn't about you. What are you going to do to foster your creativity? No, this is in a business situation. How do you get people to be creative, okay? You're everyone else. How do you get the team to do it creatively? So it might be like, if you're a football coach, how do you get the football team to think creatively about, you know, making some yardage downfield? It's not about you as the coach. It's about the team. So you want to think back to those situations you just talked about in part 3. Often people talk in terms of thinking outside of the box. It's become a trope, right? But how might you go about encouraging, fostering creativity in the workplace? How do you get them to think outside of the box? Kind of an interesting book that was popular about 10 years ago. At Ford, everyone in my division's operating committee was required to read this book, Who Moved My Cheese? So I had to read this book. Buddy of mine, he worked in a transmission rebuilding shop, rebuilding transmissions. His boss made him read the book. So this book was really popular 10 years ago. Who Moved My Cheese? And it was all about the idea that people are always moving your cheese. The rewards you're seeking, your work situations. It's how you react to that makes a difference. When you move beyond your fear, you feel free. Well, that's one way of paraphrasing part of the lessons. And as you look at it, these were some of the characters. Hem and haw, scurry and sniff. These were characters from Who Moved My Cheese? The whole thing was a fable that went on for about 100 pages. And on one hand, it was really oversimplified and trite. On the other hand, I have to tell you, looking back at some things that happened to me at Ford, it had some deep wisdom. Sniff, results-oriented, long view. Sniff, the innovator, was the successful participant in the story, in the fable of Who Moved My Cheese. Another way to think about how to foster creativity in business situations.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself.
The Oracle will see you now.
So what do you need to do to foster your creativity? This is the final part of the paper. It's the one which is probably most personally important, but really no more important than all the other sections. So come up with a list of 3 ways that you're going to foster your creativity. What are you going to do to be more creative? Keep your list simple, but impactful, realistic, and actionable. 3 items at least. I wouldn't take more than that, 3 or 4. Say what they are, how you're going to do them, why they're important, how you're going to make them happen. Keep it real. Please keep it real. It'll make it more useful to you, and it will make it a lot easier for me to read. How do I do things that are creative? Assuming that I do. What are some things you might think of? Well, One way to get started on your list is just to Google foster creativity. The answers are all on Google, right? The truth is out there. Would aliens do it? That's a way to be creative. Why? Always ask why. It's like the bumper sticker says, question authority. You can't be creative without asking why and being willing to consider different ways of doing things. Work problems backwards. Don't try to get from a problem to a solution. Try to get from a solution to a problem. What would Einstein do? I was listening to a lecture by a Nobel Prize winning physicist, and he said, you know, there's a reason they called him an Einstein. That's a physics joke. What would Einstein do? What if you didn't follow the rules? One of the best ways of being creative is simply not to follow the rules. They hem you in. That's the box. Finally, sleep on it. You may have heard the famous story about how the organic ring was discovered by a chemist who dreamt about it as a snake swallowing his tail. Lots of times sleeping on it, even if you don't find the truth in your dream, is the best way to wake up with a fresh look on things. That's all for this week. I really very much look forward to reading your posts for week 5. And more than that, I look forward to reading your personal creative essay. I think they're going to be fantastic. Take care.